Good morning and welcome to the fourth installment of our AIM2Learn webinar series brought to you by the AIM Higher Consortium. My name is Matt Minner and I'm a technical consultant with Catalyst Connection. Today we'll be covering robotics in manufacturing. And just an aside, if you're expecting to see a cybersecurity update from Mackenzie Monarco at the FBI, you're not entirely mistaken. That was originally scheduled for today, but a scheduling conflict arose and caused that session to be pushed to March 24th. So stick around to learn about robotics in manufacturing and join us again in 2 weeks for a cybersecurity threat update. And here I'm just seeing I'm not sharing my camera, which I can do, I believe. Yep, there it goes. Let me shift this around so it's, but yeah, no, that's there. So good morning again. So here we go. Let's go ahead and jump in here. So first off, we just want to do a quick overview on the AIM Higher Consortium, just in case you're not already familiar. AIM is a Department of Defense funded program by the Office of Local Defense Community Cooperation. That organization is focused on regional supply chains across the country, focused around defense, of course. And our goal here within AIM Higher is to strengthen and expand the DoD supply chain in Southwest Pennsylvania and West Virginia. We do have a focus on advanced manufacturing technologies, the exploration, implementation, adoption, development, et cetera. And including workforce training. Training is a big portion of the AIM Higher Consortium program. And through that program, we do provide various benefits to manufacturers in the region. So definitely, get engaged if you aren't already, and learn how you may be able to benefit with some of the mini grant funding opportunities we have, training opportunities, convenings, etc. Here, just to share a little bit about the overall consortium. It really is a consortium in the sense of the partners. We're not a membership organization per se, so it's really about supporting the whole defense supply chain and anyone interested in joining the defense supply chain here in Southwest Pennsylvania and West Virginia. But the consortium aspect is really the companies that form the consortium. Catalyst Connection is the lead organization, and we have 13 partners that we work with across the region, covering the economic development and workforce development space, along with technology development, both additive manufacturing and robotics, and then a number of major universities in the region. And finally, want to highlight the Supplier Capabilities Database. It's our effort to connect the regional supply base. If you visit our website at aimhigherconsortium.org, you'll see a link to the database on the top menu bar, and it's free to register and just helps get your company name out there, share the capabilities from a manufacturing standpoint, certifications that are critical in your industry, and even share updates on new equipment, new production capabilities that you have. So please check that out and reach out to us with any other questions. So let's dive into our overview of robotics in manufacturing. If you have any questions, please post them to the chat or the questions panel. I am running the webinar solo today, so I'll try to watch during the webinar, but maybe to the end when we get to questions. So please, post those, and look forward to answering them here throughout the webinar. So today we're going to talk about the key challenges that are made for robotics. What are the things that should start indicating to you that, hey, I should take a closer look at robotics as a possible solution for this challenge? After all, the last thing you want to do is become enamored by, the shiny objects. Y'all get lots of marketing emails or attend a trade show and you see stuff all over the place. You don't want to become enamored with that and dive into technology for technology's sake. It's a tool, and it's a tool to make life easier for you in some fashion. So you should always start where your challenges are inhibiting your ability to achieve your goals. So that's where we're going to talk about what some of those, possibilities for you may be. We'll jump into a few case studies to tie it together. We'll see how typically it's a combination of challenges rather than one single challenge that justify an implementation and really deliver value to a company with the implementation of robotics and technology. And then finally, we'll touch briefly on the AIM Higher Consortium and how we can help and how you can get engaged. Production-related challenges are probably the most commonly addressed with robotics. Robotics' ability to operate consistently around the clock, opens up increased production opportunities by both not taking a break, not slowing down at any point, don't get tired, but also by gaining incremental production in off-shift times. And we can see some of the top challenges, or when we go into a manufacturer and say, what's slowing you, what's keeping you from achieving your goals. These are some of the things we often hear. We're having difficulty keeping up with customer demand, which is often a good problem to have. But with some of the workforce challenges, and we'll talk about that later on, with some of the workforce challenges that are common in the industry today, it's not always as easy as bringing in some additional workforce or expanding to a second or third shift. Maybe you're having to turn away new work due to capacity constraints. You'd like to diversify into a new industry, maybe the defense industry, but you're not able to do that because of capacity constraints. And note here, those could be real, or they could be perceived capacity constraints. And that's another aside there from a technology standpoint. There's a lot of data collection possibilities, and maybe not even with a full implementation, maybe just a short study, a trial period to gather some data to understand what your true utilization is, depending on your visibility to your production data, and how much you're really cutting chips, or how much your presses are truly operating versus setup times, changeovers, otherwise, break times, etc. How much time are your machines really running, and what's your true capacity and true utilization? It can often be the case, we've seen in a situation where a manufacturer was about to invest in a new machining center. Obviously not a small investment, but they were able, through implementing robotic machine tending or having a robot to do this work, they were able to significantly increase their production to where really they ended up having excess capacity at that point. So that's a key challenging area where you want to be exploring robotics and technology in general. And then the last one that we started to touch on, challenge to staff that second or third shift that maybe you're wanting to go to in order to meet the demand that you have. Because like I said, it's not as simple as just putting the sign in the window or going and just hiring the additional people. It's challenging to find, and then often the second and third shifts, even when you find production, do they deliver the same as your first shift? Next, on the quality side, the handling precision alone that you get from robotics sometimes can address quality issues that are caused by handling or process damage that result with human operators at times when you're working with more sensitive products. Think glass panels or other ceramic objects, or things that have a high value on the, say, surface finish and final quality, where any nicks or scratches or anything like that can happen with mistakes or errors in handling, those types of applications, or even when packaging, those are great applications to consider automation. Further, when you can then extend that and leverage machine vision or other measurement technology that can be incorporated into robotics, it's really a powerful tool to help you monitor or control quality, along with creating quality records that often, depending on your sector or the specific companies that you're supplying, may be required. And then lastly, that the last bullet that we have there, the 100% inspection requirements. That right there should be a big indicator, especially if that's primarily visual inspection or somewhat of a subjective inspection, because really there's data that shows human inspectors in that scenario are only about 80% effective, at best. And certainly that will decline as the end of the shift wears on, or you've got the end of a long week or the beginning of a week. There's ups and downs in that. So that's definitely a time to explore automation, even in cases where, as I mentioned, there's a subjective nature to it, which typically would have been kind of the exclusive area of human operators to be able to make that type of subjective decision. There are systems that are employing artificial intelligence to be able to augment that and be able to learn, this is a good part, this is a bad part. And as they gather additional data, they're able to start making those same distinctions and be able to create their own rules and parameters around what was previously a subjective or viewed to be a subjective inspection. So, and with the example I've got there that you see there with the underfilled soda bottle, at least what appears to be an underfilled, that I actually just found that on the shelf at the grocery store and took a picture of it. So hey, that's certainly a company that want to take a look at that. As obviously they don't want to be underfilling their bottles, but probably even worse for their bottom line if instead of that one being underfilled, that all the rest were overfilled. So it's certainly from both aspects something that you want to consider. Now, tasks requiring precision and repeatability, also another one that's not well suited to human operators. Maybe you've got a star operator that gets it done 99% of the time, but it's just not where humans excel. On the contrary, it's the express purpose, the exact purpose for which robots were created, to do the same thing precisely over and over again. So those high precision tasks. So also think, do you have a task that you do have that issue where, this operator or that operator, they can do it, but that's if they're off, we've got to wait until they get back. Do you have tasks that are limited to people, or you feel that you have to have an extensive amount of time for new workers to get up to speed on that process to be able to handle it, and not where they already have the experience in the process or the whatever machine they're working on or the general task, but it's very specific. You really have a need to have certain operators do it. That's another red flag for you that you may want to take a look at, how you can automate. And it's not always about automating 100% of the task. Often just getting it 80% of the way there takes maybe at least the burden off that worker that you're looking to have do this. And maybe even it's still not the best scenario, but then they are going to be that much more productive if they only have to do 20% of the task. You can see the impact that can have on their production, or increasing fivefold potentially the amount of work that they can handle. On that note, we have a client we're working with right now to implement, or we're exploring it right now and getting close to potentially pulling the trigger to implement automation for a very precise painting application. They had, say, 2 or 3 workers that they trusted to do the task, but the challenge they have is those workers occasionally come across an opportunity of instead of painting this aerospace part, they get an opportunity to go, as with a lot of painters maybe have more of an interest and a passion for, say, rebuilding classic cars or doing those types of projects and working in those types of environments. So it's common and they encourage it, but it's the risk that they have that, well, they're down to about 1.5 people they trust to do the task. What if they lose those 1.5? Then what situation are going to be within this high value part for a key client? So they're going after it primarily as a workforce mitigation tool. And we'll touch on workforce more, but that's a key thing to consider. and one that you also, doesn't often get put in the same bucket as precision and repeatability, those just repetitive and monotonous tasks. While they may at times not be overly precise, repeatability is the name of the game for those. So those are the type of tasks where you do want to, consider taking a look at robotics and automation and other technologies to support your efforts. Now, over recent times, you may have noticed a pivot from focus on high production, repeatability, and precision. Now, workforce may be one of the most touted challenges that you can address with robotics that the robotics industry is marketing and putting out there. And it's honestly, it makes a lot of sense when you look at it. That's the number one challenge, or the most common challenge that we come in touch with manufacturers we visit, is just workforce. Whether they can't find workers, they have trouble retaining the ones they have, and that is just a big challenge. So specifically within workforce, beyond the just basic thing, it's hard to find workers. That certainly is the case. But looking specifically, say when you have specific jobs or tasks in your operation with high turnover, and they often are challenging to automate because they're maybe you're doing it currently manually, probably for a reason, because it historically has been challenging to automate. But you always want to maybe take a closer look if it's one grinding or welding application, or something similar that has a mix of, let's say, skilled labor needs. It's worthwhile taking a second look at those to consider automation, because like we talked about before, sometimes it's just automating that 50% of it, 80% of that task, and can get you a long way there. Difficulty finding workers, and finally attracting and retaining workers. It goes a long way. We do have a lot of manufacturers who say they're exploring robotics and interested to do so just because they want to present themselves as a technology forward company, want to show that they're regardless of the sector they're in, manufacturing takes all forms and has all types of environments. There's all types of manufacturing, and I think all can benefit regardless of the nature of their manufacturing from showing that, hey, we're not stuck in the past. We are, even though maybe our processes haven't changed in 50 years, because it works, and it's what works best. But going after new technology can really still present that to your workforce. So we'll take a look at a couple of case studies here, and we'll talk a little about why did they consider robotics, and try to tie that back to some of the challenges we just talked about. So with our first case study, it's actually a company in Indiana. This was a small manufacturer, machine shop in the firearms industry, 10 employees. And this one, was largely production related, and inability to keep up with production demand, surge. They had a surge in orders. And this was a little bit more of a challenging task, not the typical just one operation. They actually had 3 different operations with a flip involved. So it took a little bit more in terms of implementation, but they're still able in the end to deliver a system, and that they can, because of the number of parts that they can load in, can run unattended for 10 hours. So it's very significant in terms of the production increase they're able to obtain. And so really it's around automating a dull task. It was a pretty quick cycle time, under 10 minutes. And so this allows, instead of, really, even though, you see, okay, they only have to go there to change a part out, maybe check something, and then they can go work for the rest of the time. But in 10 minutes, that's tough to really change focus from one task to another. You're really not going to get a lot of other productive time. And there's really, from a workforce and workforce satisfaction, be able to work on more of the complex projects. So the production bottleneck, they couldn't keep up with demand. And this also increased their capability for driving some off-shift production capability as well. So now, while this cell is running, machinists can work on other setups, and they're exploring other automation opportunities. Oops, too far. And the next one we have, this is a little bit more of a complex, but it involves machine vision and a lot of other technology. In this particular case, that's pretty interesting and really starts to show you what's evolved that you're able to do today that maybe wasn't as doable, not too long ago. In this case, is a manufacturer at Precision Spring and Wire Form company in Southwest Pennsylvania, pushing medium size, 50 employees. And what they really wanted to do is reallocate their skilled workers to more value-added tasks. So here we had a dull task. You see the box of hooks on the upper right. All that was done is a swedging operation. The hook had already been formed, and then it creates this, puts in this press, and creates this little swedge that then it moved on to subsequent operation. But that it was just applying this swedge, and you see the big box of parts that they're going through. So just not as one after the other, a lot of things to feed through. But you can also see why this would typically be a challenging system or a challenging operation to automate. First off, people, super easy to reach in, grab one part. They've played barrel of monkeys before. They can separate them when they need to and easily insert the piece and then send it on its way. That is just not the case for robotics typically. One, finding a part, so then there's needs to be utilized some sort of machine vision to be able to identify a part that can be picked and find it and know where it is. Typically, robotics excel where all the areas are known and you know locations of everything. In this case, they're able to what they call bin picking and leverage that type of technology, as well as some creative strategies to detangle and ensure that you're not putting in multiple hooks, if they're all hooked together. So in the end, this was also a challenging challenging to staff this position. So address some workforce issues as well as production. They increased their production. Even a lot of times the robotic systems may just keep up with what the humans doing currently, especially some more collaborative systems. In this case, they increased by 25% and potential to increase that even more with the possibility of 24/7 operation. So, again, we've come into the conclusion of what we're going to be discussing about robotics wise. So if you do have any questions, post them in the chat or questions window. So now that we've covered that, here's a little bit, how can AIM Higher help? And here I've separated out some specific partners within AIM Higher and how they can help in terms of the robotics space. Here, workforce development, there's training offered by all 4 of those partners there, 2 of which I want to really highlight: New Century Careers and the RCBI, which is the Robert C. Byrd Institute, located in Huntington, West Virginia, both of which offer a robotics technician apprenticeship program. So if you're looking to implement robotics, but you're concerned, well, how are we really going to maintain this? How are we going to be able to handle this internally? That's something to consider. Actually, on that application development side, typically you certainly can work with systems integrators and other support organizations, like Catalyst Connections we'll talk about here. But because of AIM Higher, we do have some robotics experts at CMU, at Carnegie Mellon University, along with ARM, the Advanced Robotics for Manufacturing Institute, that can potentially help in some of those areas. And ARM is a membership organization that does technology as well as workforce development projects. So a lot of opportunity there. And finally, from a technical assistance standpoint, just helping you get started. Both our organization, Catalyst Connection, as well as our sister organization in West Virginia, are able to provide that type of service and really just be a trusted advisor. Often there's a limitation in bandwidth when it comes to implementing robotics. at small and medium manufacturers, it's nothing they can't handle, but they have a lot of other hats to wear and a lot of other things to take care of. So often that can be a big challenge. And just having a trusted partner to go out and help bring in various proposals so you can evaluate and find the best fit from a vendor or provider for your organization. Next, how do we get started? And this, when I say next, finally, get started. I think one of the key recommendations, just go on to our AIM Higher Consortium website, take a look, understand a little bit more of what we're doing, and complete the self-assessment. You find that on the resources tab, and I scroll down a little bit. There's a self-assessment, share about how you're currently implementing technology, and maybe there's some specific support that you're looking for. Share how can AIM Higher support you as a potential or current defense manufacturer. And you can also reach out to myself, Matt Minner. You see my email there, and also my colleague Tom Reed for any further questions or information. So with that, certainly if you do have any questions, please reach out, or in the chat if there are any. I'll just take a quick look through, and it looks like we don't have any at this point, which is just fine. We will be recording this, and it will be posted on the AIM Higher website, actually on an AIM2Learn page, so you can see this and all our prior webinars along with our upcoming topics. So with that, we thank you for attending. I'm not seeing any questions. Thank you very much for attending and your attention, and we look forward to connecting with you further. And please reach out to us at the aimhigherconsortium.org website, and look forward to being in touch. Thank you, and have a great rest of your day.